Hello and welcome back to And the Runner-Up Is. I'm your host, Kevin Jacobson, and today we are going to break down what to expect for the next era of And the Runner-Up Is. And so I have mentioned a few times on social media that I am doing Best Actress as my next series, but I haven't really gone into a whole lot of detail on it, which is what this episode is for. And joining me today, I have my partner, Sebastian Gronback, live in the studio. And by studio, I mean the apartment we share. So welcome back!
It is a dark and stormy evening.
Yes.
Boy, it can't stop raining.
Yes.
Even for a second.
Make it stop.
I got very wet as we pulled the car up from watching Black Widow, and now we're here to talk about the Oscars.
Yeah, a little bit.
Very briefly.
Yes, very briefly. This shouldn't be too long.
We are starting the new version of the show.
Yes, the next chapter.
The next chapter.
And it's a very long chapter.
It's
one of those long chapters.
It's a very long. It's one of those chapters where I pick up the book and I look and I'm like, oh, this chapter is like 80 pages, but I'm just gonna read it, and then you read through it and you're like, this was a wonderful experience.
Wow, I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
And we're here to talk about Best Actress.
Yes.
So why Best Actress?
Why? Well, number one, a lot of people have been requesting it, so I do want to give the people what they want. But I also think that it is frequently the most interesting category at the Oscars, and is the one that typically warrants a lot of discussion and debate back and forth, especially between the core fan base of Oscar people. The gays, of course.
Of course. Yes. The Oscar gays demand an examination, a thorough examination of decades worth of Best Actress wins and losses.
Right. So I'm very excited to do that and do the same thing I did with the Best Picture series, which is to go through them one by one. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing any skipping around. I'll just say that this is going to be a new version of the show, still sort of having the focus on who we think the runner-up was, but the structure is changing, the order in which I break down the years is actually changing, and I'm even getting a new theme song. So that's fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be like a whole new show.
Yes. But before we really talk about exactly how things will change, I did just want to get a few of your thoughts on Best Actress. I just was curious from you, who is your favorite Best Actress winner of all time?
Now, I wrote down a few ideas here that I had for some of the wins that I like. And the first thing that came to mind when you talked about some of these wins to me is Julia Roberts and Erin Brockovich.
Wow.
A really great win. A perfect melding of actress and material. I just think it's a fantastic performance from top to bottom. One of my favorites.
It is. It's a classic movie star performance.
Another great win, Cher for Moonstruck. That's an iconic win, for sure.
Yeah.
Essential.
Yeah, she beat Glenn Close in Fatal Attraction, but that's fine.
Mm-hmm. And another one that I wanted to just mention was Natalie Portman for Black Swan.
Yes.
I think I just rewatched that pretty recently. And it's a real, what they call, tour de force.
Mm-hmm. She really put her heart and soul into that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And on the flip side of that, with Best Actress, there are always the most heartbreaking of losses. That, only one can win. Usually there's 4 other nominees, and they all walk away as losers, unfortunately. But what would you say was your most heartbreaking or upsetting or baffling loss of Best Actress?
Some really upsetting losses really include Glenn Close for Dangerous Liaisons.
Yes.
Because she should have won, and if she had won, we would have avoided 30 years of heartache just repeatedly. A movie that I watched last year that I really like and is bummed that she didn't win for this, Anne Hathaway for Rachel Getting Married. A real stellar performance, really lived in, really amazing.
Yeah.
And of course, we cannot forget Cate Blanchett and Carol. I think is a wonderful performance that I really wish had been her Oscar as opposed to Blue Jasmine, which is also a good performance.
That's an interesting take.
They're both good performances,
yeah.
But I think it would have been very nice if her win wasn't for a Woody Allen film.
That's probably fair. I bet there are some actresses out there who feel the same way. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, they really did line up quite a bit.
Yes.
But that's really interesting. And that's the kind of discussion that we'll sort of be having for, I don't know how many years at this point. There's going to be 93 plus episodes of this, so lots to uncover there. So before we sort of delve into the specifics, I also want to just confirm that the season premiere of the show will be September 1st. Hopefully easy to remember. All podcast platforms, September 1st. And if you are a patron, you will get the episode a day earlier. So go to patreon.com/andtherunnerup to get in on that if you haven't already. So yeah, September 1st, just in time for the first day of school.
Mm-hmm. So this is a good fall series.
Yeah.
Crack open an apple cider and sit on your pumpkin and listen to...
Sit on your pumpkin.
That's what you do in the fall.
Yeah. Some of us.
Yeah, you go to the pumpkin patch, and there's a guy out there driving a truck, and he's like, hey, get out of the way! But you're too busy listening to And the Runner-Up Is.
Wow. What an image. I hope some of you recreate that when you're listening this fall. Mm-hmm. So, alright, I will just say that as of this recording, the first episode has been recorded already of this, and it went really well. And I think people are going to enjoy it. The guest was fantastic, someone who's been on this show many times. And that sort of brings me to another point. I don't know how much people are interested in behind the scenes of the production of this show, but for my Best Picture series, I would record just a few days before putting out the episode. Very fast turnaround time. But this time I'm recording a few months in advance, and that's going to give me some breathing room and peace of mind, I would say. Mm-hmm. And yeah, just feeling less hectic, I suppose, because there were some weeks that were very stressful.
You're gonna finally be on a banking episodes schedule,
right?
So you'll be banking these episodes for the fall this summer,
right? So it's to the point that I am recording 12 episodes, the first 12 episodes through September, and they will be coming out basically all the way through December. Mm-hmm. So that's very exciting. So let's talk about the structure. I'll just start off by saying that in my research of trying to figure out who the runner-up was for each Best Actress race, I found it way more difficult than with my Best Picture series, which is part of why I'm switching it up here. So instead of going into an episode with a predetermined runner-up in mind and sort of, covering that performance and that film for the first segment of the show, I'm just deciding to open it up. So we will be covering all of the losing nominees, pretty much giving equal time to each one of them, talking about the performances and the films, probably some of the history of these actresses and their reputations in Hollywood at that point, and really just giving the time to discuss all of the losing nominees, not just one.
I think it's a great idea, and it's a perfect way to explore more films in the course of the show.
Yes. So then after we discuss the losing nominees, we'll talk about the winner and just get into why they won and why the losing nominees lost. And then we will have a discussion where we will try to figure out who the runner-up was. It's possible that I might disagree with my guest, which should be interesting because there are a number of years, including the most recent one, I would say, where it's very difficult to figure out who the runner-up actually was. And so I think by having a more open discussion about the runner-up, I think that will be a more interesting listen, hopefully.
Yeah.
And another major point I wanted to discuss is something that a lot of people on Twitter already know, I think. But for those of you who aren't, some of you may have expected, like with the Best Picture series, I would be starting off with the most recent Best Actress race and going back in time. But that is not the case this time around. I will be going in chronological order, which means that the first episode of the series will cover the first Best Actress race, which was 1927, 1928. I think that will be a more interesting journey through Oscar history, especially for this category in particular.
What's exciting about this is that when we get to the later years, the 50s, 60s, and so on, we'll actually be able to chart the evolution of certain actresses as they rack up nominations.
Yes.
Your Katharine Hepburns, your Meryl Streeps,
of course,
etc.
Your Glenn Closes.
Oh, your Glenn Closes.
Yes. So
you'll get to say, here's another loss for Glenn Close.
Yes, I'll get to say that. So I think we can explore a lot of different things that way, like figuring out how the Academy taste changes and how it maybe even stays the same in some regard. We can track the careers of these actresses in a more natural order rather than, going backwards. And the first time I talk about Katharine Hepburn is on Golden Pond, which that doesn't really work. So I'm excited to explore those actresses who get the multiple nominations, like we said, but also some of the one-offs, that never got another nomination. Possibly even discussing why that is, why they weren't nominated again.
And it's certainly exciting to start off the show talking about the golden age of Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Bring.
Yes, I agree. Yes. It is still going to have that spirit of the show that people like, but it also feels a little fresher, I would say. I think it will have a broader discussion through this series about what's valued when it comes to leading roles for women in Hollywood. Who is valued, who isn't necessarily as valued, and who gets the great roles and who doesn't. So I think it'll be an interesting time capsule. I mean, I think as history has gone on, the Oscars have become a little bit more specialized, I guess, a little more niche than they used to be. Wouldn't you say that?
I would say that.
Yeah. So, we'll see what happens when we get to those more modern years, but I do think that there's a lot that can be discussed about, society and what was valued at certain eras of history and how that is reflected in the nominated performances.
Oh, yes.
So the last thing is just the schedule of how these episodes are going to be released. So it's going to be different than the Best Picture series. So we will get the new episodes on the main feed every Wednesday for the first 3 weeks of every month. And then the rest of the month, whether it's one more Wednesday or 2 Wednesdays in some months, there will be bonus episodes that I release exclusive to the Patreon feed. So that's when I'll be resuming the On Second Thoughts and the other shows, my bonus shows.
Mm-hmm. They're great shows that you should definitely listen to since you subscribe on the Patreon and you get all of that great content. You'll get an episode every week.
Pretty much, yeah. I don't think I'm going to be taking a break from September to December.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll get something every week. Because I'm really banking all these episodes this summer, I'm not going to be releasing anything in August. So we're basically on a break after this episode for a month.
Mm-hmm.
Just be a little patient, and September's coming sooner than you think.
Yeah, time moves quickly nowadays. So it'll be here before you know it.
Yes. So do you have any other thoughts or questions or comments on what we can expect?
I'm just excited to watch some of these actresses from the golden age of Hollywood, because I didn't watch as many films as you did when we were going through the latter portion of the Best Picture lineups.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited to watch Greta Garbo.
Yeah.
Claudette Colbert.
Mm-hmm.
Always love me some Jane Arthur, although she's
Jean Arthur.
Jean Arthur. I always do that. Jean Arthur.
Yes.
And,
unfortunately, only nominated once.
But still, a lovely lady.
Yes.
And of course, we get to talk about the amazing Katharine Hepburn, the amazing Bette Davis, and others.
Joan Crawford.
Joan Crawford.
Yes. Norma Shearer. Some people don't find her as amazing as those actresses, but we'll talk about it.
Mildred Pierce.
That's a film.
I love it.
Yes.
Who would have thought a year ago that one of my favorite films would be Mildred Pierce?
Yeah, because I wouldn't necessarily have thought that was your thing.
Certainly is.
But now it is. Love that. So that's pretty much what I have for you today. Feel free to reach out and let me know what you think. You can find me on Twitter at Kevin_Jacobson. The show is at Oscar Runner Up. I'm also on Instagram at andtherunnerup_is. Please subscribe if you haven't already, so you don't miss the big premiere. Where could people find you?
I'm on Twitter at Sebastian Gronback. That's SEBASGRONBACK, where I am on the internet. That's the only place you can find me.
Wow. You have no other footprint.
I have no other footprint on the internet, and I'd like it to stay that way.
Okay. Good. Well, that's a great note to end on.
I'm ready to watch the movies.
Yes, we're very excited.
See you in September.
Yes. With that, I'll bid you all adieu.